Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this. Now, let's begin. I am Donna, 27 years old. A few months ago, I worked as a warehouse employee for the local Walmart to cover the costs of my new apartment. During the week, I will have 2 to 4 night shifts, depending on the quantity of goods or holiday events. At that time, we were preparing for the biggest holiday of the year, Christmas. The volume of goods coming in and being sold was very high, due to the increased shopping demand from everyone. I remember that night was also one of my night shifts. In the supermarket, there were 2 employees at the checkout, the security guard, and me in the warehouse. I was focused on inventorying the goods. The warehouse door was always open, and I could see part of the outside space, the shelves displaying dry goods. Occasionally, a few customers would walk by. From what I noticed, they were mostly young people. Around midnight, as sleepiness set in, and my eyes felt tired from the numbers and product names. When I turned to look at the warehouse entrance, a shadow, something that quickly moved away when it realized I was looking in that direction. I wasn't sure. It could have just been an illusion caused by my tired eyes. After a few minutes of doing some stretches to relax my muscles, I returned to my work. Once again, that shadow flashed past my line of sight. I stood frozen for a few seconds, struggling between trusting and not trusting my intuition. "Erica," I called out to my coworker, but there was zero response. I walked toward the warehouse door and looked around. There were 2 customers standing and choosing items. Must be that girl in the black dress. I must have just missing it. Quickly returning to my work, as soon as I turned back to my spot, I jumped and let out a loud scream. At the entrance, a man in black was standing, his gaze piercing deep into my body. He was tall, dressed in black, and carrying a backpack that seemed to be filled with many items. I guessed he was around 40 to 45 years old. "Oh, hi. Do you need any help?" I said, trying to suppress the panic I had just felt a few seconds before. His expressionless face gradually broke into a wide, empty smile, his eyes still staring directly at me, wide open and unblinking. Suddenly, I felt a chill run down my spine at that smile. Where are the kitchen knives kept?" the man asked me in a low, even tone. He left after I directed him to the section where the household items were displayed. I couldn't focus on my work again. After a moment, I looked back at the entrance, feeling as if someone was standing there, watching me. The empty, expressionless smile of the man kept replaying in my mind. Lost in my thoughts and imagination, I jumped again when the man appeared at the entrance once more. This time, he was holding a kitchen knife in his hand, a type used for chopping or cutting tough items like bones. I covered my mouth with both hands to avoid letting out a loud sound. He still wore that same smile and gaze directed at me. "You," I stuttered. Suddenly, the man moved toward me. This time his smile accompanied by a delighted laugh that grew louder with each step. "This is an area you shouldn't be in, sir," I asserted, my left hand searching the table for my phone. The sound of a hard object being slammed down on the table startled me. Looking back, he was just a few steps away from where I stood, with the backpack and the knife on the table. "This is something very interesting," he said, still smiling as he slowly unzipped the backpack. All of my focus was entirely on that strange man. I couldn't react, couldn't think. I completely forgot that I needed to escape or call for help. The items inside the backpack began to emerge, Not everything, but enough for my heart to race to the point of almost bursting. A somewhat round object with long brown strands began to show. It looked like hair. From the gap of the zipper, a panicked eye was wide open, the brown iris noticeably dilated. I began to breathe heavily, my eyes wide open, trying to gather as much visual information as possible. My gaze kept shifting between two specific points. One was the source of fear, the contents of the backpack, and the other was a potential escape route, the entrance. The man reached into the backpack with both hands. He was about to pull out the item inside. My mind started to race. I screamed at the top of my lungs, mapping out my escape route in my head, then closed my eyes and ran as fast as I could. I didn't want to, couldn't face the terrible thing he was about to pull out of the backpack. I screamed in the supermarket, my words coming out as garbled and interrupted cries for help, desperate to attract any attention. The security guard and a few customers, upon hearing me, quickly tried to calm me down and called the police. About 10 minutes later, 4 local police officers arrived. From the warehouse, they escorted the man outside. When he saw me, he broke into that creepy smile again and reached out his hand. A human ear, slick with red liquid that had yet to dry. I immediately vomited, my head spinning, and I was taken to the hospital for emergency care. To ensure my mental well-being and health, the doctor communicated with the police not to disclose any further details about the murder case to me. I reported everything I witnessed to the police, quit my job, and then moved to another city. I wasn't sure why that man had targeted me, and it took a long time for me to erase his horrifying smile from my mind. I'm Logan, 36. Moved back to my hometown in Texas after over 10 years of living in other states and trying out all kinds of jobs. Started everything from scratch, but it's all good. I'm fine and feeling optimistic about it all. For the past 3 months, I've been working at a Circle K near my place, doing both gas station attendant and cashier stuff in the store. The job's not hard, but it eats up almost my whole day. Sometimes I make mistakes when I'm working late for long stretches, or when the gas station and store get packed. I told my boss we should hire someone else so we can split shifts. A week after putting up the job ad, the store got a new employee named Benny. He's 7 years younger than me, tall and skinny, with green eyes under a mess of hair. He's really into his old Converse, worn out soles and covered in layers of dust. He always walked heavy, shoulders hunched, looking like a human clothes hanger. He always smelled kinda burnt. Wasn't bad, but it threw people off. Benny was quiet, just a few words to customers like hello and thanks. Even though Benny looked and acted kinda odd, his work attitude was solid, always on time and really detailed. Since Benny showed up, my job's been a little easier. But trouble hit after just 2 weeks. The store started noticing stuff going missing. Not sure when this started, but I only noticed when the stock and sales numbers were way off. So I told the boss. Benny and I are the first ones to take the fall for this. The boss just stayed calm when he heard what I had to say. There are security cameras in the store. Can you check the footage from the last 5 days to see if anything's weird? You're off tonight, and I'll pay you full. That's what the boss offered, and I had no reason to say no. Maybe I had been working for a long time, so he decided to trust me. Yep, Benny's weirdness made people around him feel like he was unpredictable. That night, I just chilled, did some stuff around the house, and ate. Then I crashed on the couch, popped open my laptop, and started checking the footage. 9:30, August 26th. Benny was at the register, messing with some random stuff. A few minutes later, a customer walked in, Anna. I know her, she's a regular. Anna grabbed a bottle of shower gel and a magazine, As soon as she left, another guy walked in, a tall brown dude. He grabbed something. I zoomed in and saw it was a bottle of engine oil. For the next 20 minutes, no more customers came in, and Benny just stood at the register, not moving. I started yawning, and my eyes were getting super heavy. I left the laptop and pulled out my phone to scroll through a shopping site. It wasn't until I heard a noise that I remembered I was actually getting paid for this and focused back on it. Benny was arranging stuff in the freezer section. I watched him closely, and he wasn't doing anything weird. The customer bell rang again. Yep, it was Anna. She probably forgot something. Happens all the time. Shower gel and a magazine? I muttered when I saw what Anna was bringing to the counter. I was curious, but then I figured everyone's got their own thing they're into. As soon as Anna left, a tall guy with brown skin walked in. Wait! I yelled, sitting up straight. He earlier must have just been a coincidence. He probably wanted to buy something else. I mumbled. I was watching every move of that brown-skinned guy, and then... Engine oil? I said, reaching out to pause and zoom in to double-check. I got up, walked to the fridge, poured a glass of cold water, and drank it all. I was more awake, went back to the couch, put the laptop on my lap, and focused on watching. For the next 20 minutes, Benny was back to cleaning around. While he was by the freezer, the alarm went off again. I widened my eyes to see the customer coming in. Anna? I froze, my heart racing as she walked over to the toiletries counter. A bottle of shower gel and a magazine. That's what she had when she came to the register. I ran my hands through my hair and squeezed. I couldn't say a word, just stayed like that, letting the pain remind me that was real. As soon as Anna left, the brown guy showed up again. My heart was racing. Please, please, please! I silently begged him not to grab another bottle of engine oil, but what I wanted and what the guy did were totally different. What the hell is going on? I yelled when I saw what the guy bought for the third time. I looked at the time on the screen. It was still 9:30. I clicked on any part of the recording, and it still showed the same time. I slammed the laptop shut, ran to my room, locked the door, and stared at the clock all night, making sure time was actually moving. As soon as it was daylight, I was both excited and panicked, rushing to the store. Benny didn't show up to work today, and the boss couldn't get a hold of him either. I played the recording for him to see. Once again, the boss and I were stuck in some crazy time loop. The only people we could count on at that point were the police. While we waited for the police to figure things out, the boss and I took turns running the store and the gas station. I was always distracted, just constantly staring at the clock. 2 days after the boss reported it, the police showed up at the store. Based on what you told us, we looked into this young guy named Benny Mason. He's 27. The address he put on his resume is your store. Didn't you catch that? 6 years ago, this place was home to a family of 6. Sadly, the house caught fire and everyone inside died. The oldest son in the house was the only one they couldn't find. When the police checked the tape again, they noticed something weird. With each loop, Benny's shadow on the floor kept getting shorter until it just disappeared.
I am Marie, 28 years old, and I have been living alone in the city of Fresno for nearly 8 years. I never thought that working at the bakery counter in a Walmart supermarket could turn into a lifelong obsession. I had been working here for over 3 years, starting every day early in the morning when the store was still quiet. It was a routine job with flour, ovens, the delicious smell of fresh bread, and brief conversations with co-workers. Everything changed the day Gim Arcour disappeared. Jim was a young girl. She was beautiful, quick-witted, always volunteered for the night shift, and was ready to work extra hours at any time. No one at the bakery worked harder than Jim. She once said she needed money to help her family, that she couldn't afford to fail. She was always on time, never missed a day without notice. And yet one morning, she didn't show up for her shift. At first, everyone thought maybe Jim was sick or had an urgent matter to deal with. But when the manager called and no one answered, a strange feeling began to creep in. I remember last week she seemed more stressed than usual. When we were cleaning up after our shift, Jim confided in me about a problem that had been worrying her. "Marie," she whispered, still wiping down the oven, "I think someone is trying to hurt me." I stopped mid-action and looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I am not sure," Jim sighed. "But Brad always looks at me with these strange eyes. Last week I found my locker had been broken into, and yesterday I saw him hanging around, even though it wasn't his shift." Brad was the night shift manager, a middle-aged man who was quiet with a cold stare. He had only started working here a few months ago. I nervously told Jim to report it to the manager. Jim shook her head helplessly since Brad was the manager, and she had no concrete evidence. I placed my hand on her shoulder to comfort her. "If there's anything that makes you feel unsafe, tell me, okay?" Jim smiled weakly and nodded. "Thanks. Maybe I'm just overthinking." Nearly a week after the incident, no one knew where Kim had gone. Her family had no news either. The police were called in. They questioned all the staff, searched for information, but there were no traces to be found. A few days after Kim's disappearance, life seemed to go back to normal, or at least, people tried to make themselves believe that. I still went to work every day, still spread dough on trays, still heard the oven crackling as if nothing had happened. Everything became eerily silent, as if no one dared to mention Kim's name. We kept working, but the worry lingered in every glance. I couldn't help but notice that Brad seemed unnervingly calm after Kim disappeared. While all of us were tense and worried, he remained composed, as if nothing had happened. Sometimes I even caught him smiling to himself while checking the oven, the one Kim used to handle. Then, that morning, the first nightmare began. A middle-aged woman stormed up to the bakery counter, her face flushed with anger. She slammed a bag of bread onto the counter, her voice sharp with frustration. "Do you know what's in here?" I slowly looked down at the bag of bread. On the outside, it looked like any other baguette, golden brown, still giving off that familiar, fragrant baked smell. But when the woman tore open the bread, inside was a dark patch, and before I could process it, the customer pulled out a long brown hair. I heard murmurs from the people around us. The noise rose, as if a crowd was about to burst into chaos. The manager quickly rushed over, forcing a tight smile in an attempt to calm the customer. He hurriedly tried to come up with an explanation. "Sorry, ma'am, this is definitely an accident. We'll check the baking process to make sure this doesn't happen again." I just stood there trembling, my mind spinning with one thought. The hair, it looked so much like Jim's. That evening, I sat curled up on the old couch, a thin blanket draped over my shoulders. The TV buzzed in the quiet room, filling the emptiness of a lonely night after a long shift. I held a cup of water, taking small sips to ease the fatigue building in my body. Today had been long. I tried to push aside the swirling thoughts about Jim, the hair and the bread, the strange feelings that had been haunting me these past few days. But then, a news headline jolted me back to reality. Fresno police are investigating a horrifying incident. A customer at Walmart discovered a human finger in a loaf of bread purchased from the store's bakery. The cup in my hand slipped, the glass hitting the floor with a crash, the water spilling onto the carpet. My whole body froze, my eyes glued to the TV screen. Currently, DNA tests are underway to identify the victim. I gasped, my cold hands gripping the arm of the chair. The finger. It couldn't be. A wave of disgust surged from deep within me. making me want to vomit. I tried to find a reasonable explanation. Could it have been an accident? A sick joke from someone? An unusual mishap in production? But no scenario made sense. Because I had touched those loaves, I had packaged them with these hands. I had placed them on the shelf to sell, neatly, cleanly, at a ridiculously low price. And now, a part of someone's body had been in it. A piece of someone had been crushed, mixed into the dough, baked golden in the industrial oven, and then wrapped up in a clean plastic bag. Guilt welled up in my chest, choking me. Was I an accomplice? I had touched it. I had placed it on the shelf, unknowingly inviting customers to buy that disgusting thing. I tossed and turned in bed, rolling from side to side, unable to shake the horrific images from my head. The finger in the bread, the hair tangled in the soft filling, the oven that had been running all night. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me into darkness, but it wasn't peace. I found myself standing in the Walmart bakery. Everything was unnervingly silent. There were no machines running, no workers chatting, no bread puffing up in the oven. No more buttery smells, no more warmth from the fresh-baked trays. I slowly walked forward, each step echoing in the empty space. The silence felt unnatural, as if the whole world had stopped. Then, my gaze stopped at the industrial oven. I didn't understand why I felt scared, but an uneasy feeling began to spread through my body. Suddenly, something started to ooze from the oven's door. A thick, dark liquid slowly dripped down onto the white-tiled floor, creating long, winding streaks. I stared at it, trying to reassure myself that it was just strawberry jam, that maybe someone had spilled an ingredient. But then the foul, metallic smell hit me. I gasped for air, feeling my body freeze, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. I wanted to look away, to run, but some invisible force kept me rooted to the spot. The oven door slowly opened. Inside, amid the charred metal and ash, was Jim. Her body was burned, with patches of skin peeling away to reveal the charred flesh beneath. Her hair was no longer soft, only scorched clumps sticking to her distorted face. Her eyes were wide open, staring straight at me. Her mouth hung open, as if trying to scream. I stepped back, but she began to move. Jim lifted her arm, blackened and ulcerated, pointing directly at me. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't. Then her voice echoed, not through sound, but through a whisper that reverberated in my mind. I'm still here. I jolted awake, drenched in sweat, my breath rapid as if I had been submerged underwater. I woke up with dark circles under my eyes and my body exhausted after almost no sleep. My stomach twisted as I remembered the horrific nightmare. Jim in the oven, her burned body, her eyes staring at me. But I reassured myself that it was just a dream. A crazy dream brought on by my mind, haunted by Jim's disappearance and the terrifying news last night. I didn't even dare to check my phone or turn on the TV. I didn't want to hear any more news. When I entered Walmart, the atmosphere was eerily strange. People were gathered in small groups, whispering to each other, their faces all marked with a sense of shock. My heart pounded heavily, each beat hard to breathe with. A bad feeling crept into my cells. Then I heard a sentence that made my whole world crumble. The police have confirmed. It's Jim. My legs felt weak. I leaned against the bakery counter to steady myself, but the dizziness in my head didn't fade. The finger in the bread. It was Jim's. The air in the supermarket seemed to thicken, making it hard to breathe. Everything in the bakery, trays, flour, freshly baked loaves, all twisted in my eyes. The industrial oven was dismantled shortly after. Walmart closed for several weeks for the investigation. But no one knew the true story. A part of me wanted to believe it was just a terrible mistake, that no one could be cruel enough to do something like that. But the rest of me couldn't believe it. I no longer work at Walmart. Every time I step into a supermarket, every time I see a fresh loaf of bread, I hear Jim. Not a nightmare, not a hallucination, but a haunting whisper that echoes from the deepest parts of my mind. I'm still here. Almost a year has passed since that horrific day. I moved to another city, started a new job at a small bakery, trying to rebuild my life. But the memories of Jim, of Walmart, of those horrifying loaves of bread, still cling to me. I can't stop thinking about Brad, the man with the cold eyes and strange behavior. After the incident, he disappeared too. The police questioned all the staff, including Brad, but there was not enough evidence to charge anyone. But I know. Deep down, I know something is wrong with Brad. Jim's warning about him following her, the strange look when the hair was found in the bread, and his sudden disappearance after the incident, everything is just too coincidental. Was Jim's case really an accident, or was it a crime too cleverly concealed? I quit my security guard job 3 years ago, but the memory of that night still haunts me. Every time I see a no signal on a screen, my heart starts pounding. In 2019, I was working the night shift as a security guard at Walmart. After 2 years on the job, I knew every nook and cranny of that place. That night, I was sitting in the security room, drinking coffee and watching NBA on my phone. The clock had just struck 2 a.m. when a loud crash echoed from somewhere in the building. It sounded like someone had knocked over a whole shelf. I immediately switched to the CCTV screens. Images from many CCTV displayed on 6 screens, covering everything from the main entrance to the hallways, from the central lobby to each individual department. I checked each angle, zooming in on areas where something might have happened. Nothing. Everything was silent. I grabbed my flashlight and keys and started patrolling from the ground floor. I meticulously checked each department. After about an hour of patrolling, finding nothing unusual, I returned to the security room. Maybe it was just a stray cat knocking over a trash can outside. I sat down, intending to go back to my phone, when I suddenly noticed something strange on CCTV number 8, which covered the best electronics department on the second floor. A faint, bluish light, like the glow from a TV screen. I zoomed in on that CCTV. Yes, there was definitely something glowing inside the store, but how could that be? I had just checked that store, and everything was off. I quickly grabbed my flashlight and keys to head back to the second floor. The second floor hallway was darker than the ground floor, with only a few emergency lights illuminating it. As I approached Best Electronics, I clearly saw the blue light from inside. I unlocked the door and stepped in. The scene inside stunned me. In the middle of the store, in front of a flat-screen TV, stood 2 people, an elderly man and an elderly woman. They stood close together, staring intently at the screen. "Excuse me, what are you 2 doing here?" I said loudly. The woman turned to look at me. Her face was wrinkled, and she offered a gentle smile with calm eyes. "This is the only program that makes him happy." I looked over at the man. He was still staring straight at the screen, unmoving. My hand unconsciously tightened its grip on the flashlight. "How did you get in here?" "We closed at 11 p.m. "We just need to watch a little longer. He really likes this show," the woman said. A chill ran down my spine from the way she spoke. The man hadn't moved or said a word since I entered. I started to wonder if he was even alive. That thought made me want to run immediately. "I have to report this. You 2 need to come out with me." My voice was stiff, trying to hide the rising panic. "Just 5 more minutes. Please, I'll call the police if you don't cooperate." I pulled out my walkie-talkie, my hand trembling as I pressed the button to call the night supervisor. While calling, I didn't dare take my eyes off the 2 people. "Jake, I've got 2 intruders in Best Electronics on the second floor. Need backup and call the police." "Roger, keep them there. I'm calling the police now." When I hung up and turned back, the 2 people were gone. I stood frozen. I had only looked down at the walkie-talkie for a second to hang up. How could they disappear so quickly? I shined my flashlight around the entire store, my hands shaking uncontrollably. My breathing became rapid, as if there wasn't enough oxygen in my lungs. I shined my flashlight all over the store. No one. I checked the storage room in the back. The employee restroom, all empty. The TV was still on, displaying a blue screen. The police arrived. They searched the entire building, but found no one. There were no signs of forced entry at any of the entrances. All the doors were still locked, and the alarm system was functioning normally. "Are you sure you saw them?" the police officer asked me with skepticism. I understood immediately. He thought I was hallucinating. "Absolutely sure. They were standing right in front of that TV. They asked to review the CCTV footage. We sat in the security room, replaying the recording from 3 a.m. On the screen, I saw myself opening the door to Best Electronics and stepping inside. I stood in the store, shining my flashlight everywhere. And I was talking to thin air. I froze, feeling like I was going crazy. In the CCTV footage, the store was completely empty. It was just me standing alone, talking to the darkness. But I swear with a God that I saw those two people. I still vividly remember that woman's voice and her eyes. The police examined the CCTV footage until morning. On the screen, the TV was indeed on, emitting a blue light. But no one else was visible besides me. I worked for 3 more months, then quit. Not because I was afraid, but because I couldn't focus anymore. Every night on patrol, I would stop by Best Electronics. The TV was always off, the store always empty. But sometimes I still felt like someone was watching me from inside. 6 months later, I read that Best Electronics had closed down. The reason: low revenue and unexplained technical incidents. They said the electronic devices in the department would often turn on by themselves at night, especially the large flat-screen TV. That department is now a bakery, but I never dare go in. Some nights when I drive by, I still see the dim light from inside. It's as if the old couple is still standing there, watching their favorite show on a non-existent screen.